Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for being here tonight with me.
No problem. And hello, Mr. Robert. And hello to all of you out there. As always, we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we always pray that you're doing well. So hopefully you're warm or cold or whatever it is that you prefer. Yeah, we got another story tonight too. So what was the name of it?
The spider story. It was the fall of the spider.
The fall of the Spider-Man. Yeah. The fall of the Spider-Man. So that seems like it's going to be an interesting story. So y'all, stay with us.
Yeah.
Savage Lee, how you doing? And Lucky. Good evening, everybody.
We got a full house. Tonight. Thank you all for being here. We got Lucky Stone, Scotty Boy, Chloe, Savage Lee, Chris Smith. Thank you all for being here tonight. So it's all good. And Nina the Mystic's in the house. Go over there and subscribe to her channel. Go buy one of the new shirts. Or the new hats or mugs or whatever she's got with the big fist on it, like it's really cool. So do that and get over there. Link is in the description below, and it's a good thing. Anyway, all good. Join us on Sunday nights with us. Let's talk. It's a good thing. Or Saturday nights on my channel right here. There you go. And so there you go. And Crystal Shaman's in the house. Nice to see you again. Haven't seen you in a while. So there you go. Let's see. I hope I didn't miss anybody coming in. I'm sure Sunset Dreamer will be in the house here soon if he's not listening already because he's a slow typer. Anyway. Tonight we're going to be talking about 9 years among the Indians again. Let's see. I got to pull that up. I'm a little bit slow with that tonight. Sorry about that, but hey, it's always good. Little dog. No, go. What do you want? You want a treat? Oh, I always want a treat. There you go. Okay. 9 years among the Indians. Again, we are getting through this book, but we're finding, there he is, there's Sunset Dreamer. We're going to be talking about this. Oh, not another one. Hang on, gotta give the dogs treats. Leave me alone. There you go. Here's some scraps for you. I ran out. Sorry. Yep, steal one from them. Don't you love it when the dogs are beggars? But,
yeah.
But they know I give them treats. Don't say
it too loud. Duggar will hear you.
Yeah, 9 years among the Indians with Herman Lehman. Remember, he started out, he was stolen by the Apaches, and we've read many of his adventures as he clearly goes through, and I don't remember where we left off, but he was about to get lost and run away. They were on a raid, and the poor guy, they went back to the reservations. They got tired. Remember, they were in the mountains.
Yep.
They were in the mountains. They were in the snow. They were dying. It was terrible. They were starving to death. It was a bad time to be alive.
when you gotta chew on leather to get something.
Yeah, they were eating their moccasins, remember?
Yep.
And then They went down and they found their horses all fat and good in the valley. And they were like, okay, we've had enough. And we were going to go back. They all talked about it. And we're done. And then they got to the res, and the soldiers were searching for a white boy. They hit him, remember? They put him under blankets, and they sat on top of him as they talked to the soldiers.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So he escaped that because he didn't want to be found. And the Indians didn't want them to find him, because if they found him, or they would kill him before they'd give him up. See, I had a friend just ask me about this, and he says, so why is it so important to talk about this guy? And I says, well, it's because he told the story from the white man's perspective, because the native, nobody really wanted to hear their story. They were the natives. They didn't tell stories. And when they did, they were talking about, the coyote on the hill and the beaver, and the whirlwind, and the white man just didn't understand those stories. It was like, doesn't make any sense to me, And
they thought that everything that the Indians did, because they were savages, was no good.
Yeah, it's no good. And how can I learn anything from a savage?
That's right.
So they didn't really pay attention. They don't want to hear their side of the story, because to them, the white man was like, how can we exterminate these people? How can we get rid of their heritage? How can we, they would take the children and ship them off to boarding schools, Christian boarding schools, and then, impose religion on them. And they would cut their hair, not let them speak their language, literally make them into white people as much as you could possibly do. And with that, they changed a lot of destinies that way, and eradicated a lot of tribes, really. Sad. It's really sad, but that's what they do.
Let me interject something here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I went to a retreat up in Tennessee, close to Nashville, Tennessee, just to give you a whereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a weekend retreat, and I was there to teach puppetry and to show how to make the puppets and whatever. And I had little classes, 30-minute classes and stuff. But anyway, so some of the people who were there at the retreat, some of the older women, but they were only like in their 40s.
Yep.
They had been sent off the reservation and had been to the boarding schools, and they were there to tell the story and as to how they survived the cruelty of some of the teachers of the Methodist Church. And it was hard to listen to their stories. And I'm like, it was like what the priest did to me, kind of thing. And I was like, wow, they did what to you? And they made you sit in the cellar. Just, oh my God.
Yeah.
So there's probably some of this still going on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, people think that it's been over 100 years since this stuff has happened. Nah, this happened. It was 2006-ish when I went to that retreat. So just saying.
Yeah. So, no, I totally get that. I'm just, and they did this up until, heck, they would take kids off the reservation and for $10, you could adopt a native kid for $10 off the reservation. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, to 1978. That's just like, shoot, not that long ago.
No. It's been within my lifetime.
Yeah, mine too. Holy cow. I mean, I think I got cars older than that.
Yeah, really.
Kind of funny. But anyhow, um, back from those days. But the point is, so yeah, it was a hard life. So here we go with this. Now remember, he was rescued, or he was kidnapped by this chief Carnivus, and now we get up. They're on the reservation again, and there's not much to do on the reservation, right? This is the bad part. This is where things really go sour.
Uh-oh,
And
mischief time.
yes, mischief time. You're sitting in your, oh, that's the wrong one. I'm trying to find a good one for this. Mischief stuff. Nope, that ain't it. When you want to find a thing to be on the plains, then you can't. Okay, let's try this one. You're sitting there on the plains, just like this. You're on your reservation. What are you going to do? Right? I mean, what's there to do? Well, what do Indians do best? Well, they gambled. And they gambled. And then they traded. And then they drank liquor. And liquor was bad. Indians back in the day, they really got affected by liquor.
Oh, they still do. Firewater.
Firewater, exactly. It affects them way worse than it does a white guy. It says here. It says great grudges and feuds were brought up between the different parties of our tribe, their own tribe, when the drinking started, and fuss or murder was to follow. One of the fugitives from a tribe for good, after a general carousal, one of the unfriendly bands came to where our warriors were and demanded firewater. Fight ensued, which one of our braves was wounded in the stomach. Yuck. In a few days, we retaliated by going to their camp and helping ourselves to some beer, which I can imagine it was warm beer, because where else would they keep it in the cooler?
The moose drool.
Yeah, hard fight, and one of our party or the other had been annihilated if the soldiers had not interfered. One of our party, being the aggressors, we expected to receive greater punishment, so the chief called it all together, all of our forces, and we decided to steal horses, because that's what Indians do best in them days, from the other bands and run away. And before going, we decided to get on a big spree. And then they had some traders, and they brought us a good supply of firewater. Now, see, this must have been good for the traders, thinking, I'll just go get some firewater, and I just bring it over to the tribe, and they give me all their stuff.
Yep.
And then, of course, a carousal was the worst ever. They got all this firewater. He says it's the worst I ever witnessed. Squaws fell out literally. They cut each other to pieces. And one squaw, while drunk, proved untrue to her husband. He cut off her nose and made her go to the wigwam of the man who had taken advantage of her intoxicated condition. Wow. Now you want her? I just chopped her nose off. Go over there. Do you want her now? But she's drunk. See, you can't avoid anything. Even back in the day, the men were taking advantage of the women when they were drunk. So.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Yeah. And then, see, the thing is if women got drunk and slept with other guys that way, and the man cut off their nose, there would be a lot less drinking and carousing. Tell you that. You definitely know when a woman comes around you and say, "Oh, you must have cheated on your husband. You got no nose."
Well, honey, was it good?
Yeah, better have that.
Was it worth it?
Yeah, was it worth it? She had a couple were forced to camp. And of course, then they were exiled and they were forced to camp on the edge of the village. Several squaws died in the carousal, which aroused the ire of their husbands, and they began quarreling. A band of us drove another band back towards where the soldiers were quartered, and a few of us gathered our belongings and all the liquor and started for the plains region. So they gathered everything. You ain't gonna have nothing. We're gonna leave. So they did. We traveled a day and night, made camp at a nice, cool, shady place. Yeah, that's where you want to get drunk at. And prepared for a real spree. Oh boy, we're gonna get drunk, boys. There's a good shady spot. There's a little creek down there we can peek in, and let's tie on a good one, right?
Yeah, and we separated ourselves from them dang drunks.
That's right. We're gonna get drunk now.
We left
gathered
them back on the hill back there, and we left all them dang drunks back there. So come on, let's get drunk.
Well, and see, that's the thing. These guys were trained fighter, warrior guys that hunted buffalo all day and fought and did this and that. And now you took all that away and you just put them in a teepee here on the plains and you said, okay, just do whatever you do, people. And the soldiers say, and then... So, you think of things to do, anyway. Then,
stuff.
Well, yeah. Okay, so then they travel all day and night. They got to this place. Suddenly up rushed a dozen warriors of our own tribe. Probably pissed off because they took all the liquor. And they attacked us. Their own tribe. This is how bad the fire water affects people. Now you got your own tribe, and your own tribe is fighting amongst themselves. You see what I mean?
Yep.
But then it says we would not double team on our own kind, so 12 of our braves volunteered to fight those 12. Must have been 12. But while they were preparing for the fight, the enemy killed one of our party and ran back. Now our chief, Carnivus, ordered me to bend my shield and help drive away the cowards. He and I and several of our comrades mounted fast horses and gave chase. We ran them about 5 miles, where they prepared an ambush. These are Indians fighting Indians. What do you expect? They know how to fight, drunk or not. They were very foolish, and we went right into the trap. Or we were very foolish. They rode right into the trap. And because they didn't think our friends are gonna, fight us. They're our tribe, Hey, they're buddies. All of our comrades, it says the Indians seemed to rise up out of the ground and fire at us. All our comrades were killed. We turned and retreated slowly, a kind of running fight to within a quarter of a mile of the camp. 2 or 3 came up with us, and we had hand-to-hand combat. Lances and spears and tomahawks flew lively for a while, but I was too busy to take too much notice of what was going on around me. A warrior raised a spear to the end of my days, but Carnivus, my chief, seeing the movement, thrust him through with a lance. At the same time, in the same instant, a medicine man killed Carnivus. A medicine man thinks he can't be killed and that he is proof against his enemy as long as he refrains from eating swine. Now, I did not know that. Are they like Jewish or something? Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, so if you don't eat swine,
because swine dig in the dirt. There have been a lot of folks who are like, that's an unclean animal. We just don't eat them. So I don't know I don't think they were Jewish. However, there has been some research that they're still doing that I don't know which tribe, but one of the tribes in the Americas did seem to have a heritage that was brought over by them sneaky Egyptians or whoever, years ago, and they
Yep.
settled somewhere around St. Louis in that area. So whatever the tribes were, part of the mound builders kind of thing. And but anyway, they have some Jewish tendencies for the way it was described. So, but anyway, maybe they got it from them,
Yep. Well, yeah, we're talking about a lance. Chris Smith is right. It's a short spear, or it's a lance is a short spear. There, does that end the controversy? Scotty boy, I know that's what you would fish with.
Lances can be longer than a short. They're not spears; they're poles with a a sharp point.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not a spear. I mean, they're not a sword.
Not a sword, yeah. Okay, well, anyway, the medicine man, he thinks he's got a Winchester, and he's waving his shield and his Winchester, and he says, "This is your last day, and now you die," because him and Carnivus were pretty much the last ones. So this young boy, who's barely, he's like 15 at this point. He's like, "It's you or me," and he ran behind a big rock. And he started, he had nothing but a bow and arrows, but was determined to put up a fight and to avenge his chief, Carnivus. Well, he fought and ran around the rock enough times. And then the medicine man was after him. And the medicine man was pretty confident he was going to kill him. He's an older man, and he's a hardened warrior, and he's got a Winchester and a shield. And here's this boy. He's 15. He's got just bow and arrows. Yeah, but then again, he says, "I always hated that old devil, for during that time I had been with them," he says, "he never lost an opportunity to torment me. I was just a helpless captive boy." Well, anyway, now it was different. He put up a fight. His heart was filled with hatred for killing his chief. And that was unleashed, and he let him have it. He had been, I became cool and collected, he said, as I ran around the rock the fourth time, and suddenly turned and sent an arrow under his shield and through his stomach. And as he threw up his arms, I let another feathered shaft, which penetrated his side. He fell, and he asked me not to shoot him again or anymore, and he was killed. He's yelling, "I'm killed." I was afraid that he was not quite so dead as he would have not, believed me. And I sent another arrow that pierced his heart, and he rolled his eyes and died. Carnivus was avenged. I picked up my shield, took off my belt, and buckled it on myself, made myself a present of his Winchester and cartridges, and I felt that I could then whip all of the party. Okay, he just got a big ego because he killed that guy. But I knew that the death of the medicine man would soon be known, but I was proud of my victory. And I went on. I could not, he had to escape because now he'd killed one of his own Indian people.
And anyway, not only that, but he killed the shaman.
Yeah, exactly. So he ran off. He could not sit till he couldn't see the warriors anymore. He could tell by the yells of victory that they had, been killed by the band. He could hear shirks and people howling, and so he concealed himself amongst the rocks, tried to hide out. And they looked for him, and then night came, and he ran off. Where to go? He had to hide. He just kept going and going, and then eventually he came back to the camp. Not knowing what to do, he found a brother or sister, actually, the brother's sister, of Carnivus, and Carnivus's sister actually, and then she said, "You need to leave, or you will be killed, and take the horse, this best horse, the real fast one. It's in the herd. Go get that horse, and here's some things, and get the heck out of here." And so he did. He went out there, he got the best horse and took off. Well, and there he goes, and never looking back. Anyway, so he took off, and away he went. And then it says here, he says that Carnivus had met his death in how I had been the murder of his assailant, but nobody in the tribe would ever forgive me for that, because that's the Indian way. There's no killing an Indian by an Indian in your tribe and then saying it's okay. Then you're a dead man. Anyway, he rode off on this horse, and he got away, and that led to his life a year alone on the prairie. And this is where he went up into the hills, and he went over the plains, through the deserts, and he came to almost dying of hunger and thirst. And finally, he came to a narrow canyon with a small stream of pure, clear water, a bunch of cottonwood trees, and he had his horse was exhausted from all the running and traveling they did. These guys will ride for 3-4 days at a time without stopping. How they did it, I don't even know. Well, it says the walls of the canyon were almost perpendicular in places, and I experienced some difficulty in finding a place of decent to descent to the creek below. I finally discovered a narrow trail leading down into this canyon, and I could not only, I could access the water and abundance of good grass, and he took up his home right there. He said he remained there for a long time. He could not say. Maybe 6 or 8 months. Can you imagine living in a little canyon 6 or 8 months all by yourself at like 15 or 16 years old?
Yeah, actually, of course, I never went out west. I went up to North Georgia. But yeah, I was sitting here trying to imagine what that little creek looks like, and the perpendicular walls, meaning they was straight up and down, and so it would be so cool. That's a good picture. It would be so cool to go out west and see some of those places,
It would. Yeah, it's pretty out west here.
Yeah.
If you get to some of these canyons, especially, with the different colored rocks and things like that, man, it can be really, really nice. Very pleasing to the eye anyway.
Yeah, and I've only had a chance to ride through it. I didn't get a chance to visit, so.
Yeah. So he's out there. He's found deer that travel down to the creeks, and he hunted deer, and he hunted, elk or whatever was there. Things were plentiful, so he's out there.
Do we know where he is at this time?
Not exactly sure. He's either in New Mexico or Texas, one or the other, right in that area. So here's a map. Told you I was going to have some maps. So this is kind of the territory where they were. So he had to either, you see here's New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, right in this area, Arkansas, whatever, but didn't get that far. So this is kind of the area he's in. It's he says it's arid plains, rugged hills, and desert stuff. So yeah, it's kind of probably more up in the New Mexico area, up in there on the plains.
Yeah.
But yeah, doesn't really say exactly. Just says canyon. I don't think he knew himself where it was. But anyway, he didn't hear a human voice or nothing. No enemies came. He just, hiding out. He didn't know what to do. His chief, or his protector, his chief, who died. And now what do? You can't really go back to your tribe, or they might kill you. It's kind of sad. Anyway, he was down there for that long time, and eventually, taking advantage of Grove of the Willows, he fringed. He heard he went to Texas, and he says, taking advantage. Okay, I rode several days and I crossed a number of streams. He decided to get out of there, and on occasion I saw several men whom to be white men or Mexicans. He didn't know. He avoided them all. But he was on the road. He had to leave there. He couldn't just stay there anymore. And I came to a stream and spent a while there. I'd get bear grass and love vine and boil them. Ugh, get grass and boil the grass. Jeez. Yeah, he'd wash his hair in that, which he grew long, straight, and beautiful. I had 28 cartridges from my Winchester. Remember, he stole the Winchester off the shaman. And then he says, every ball brought down a deer, antelope, or a buffalo. The ammunition lasted me quite a while, for in order to use it, I used my bow and arrow to kill game. When my cartridges gave out, I carried the gun over between the Pecos and the Rio Grande somewhere and hid it in a cave. So, people, there's a Winchester hiding in a cave somewhere. I was afraid the Mexicans, the Americans, or everybody, so my gun was no further to use to me. So I gave it up. So where is the Pecos River? I don't know. This is
New Mexico.
Okay.
Or Arizona. New Mexico.
That's Oklahoma. I'm looking for New Mexico. Okay, let's see if I can find this. Where is the Pecos River? I wish these maps would go bigger, but this is an old map from way back in the day, and so here's Texas. You can see that Texas was still wild back in the day. There wasn't even counties or nothing, but you can see human development. No, must be Indian territory yet. I know this would be the Rio Grande. Maybe this is the Pecos River. I don't know. That goes up in New Mexico. Sorry about that. I shouldn't have. Anyway, eventually he ran out of food.
Hang on. The Pecos River originates in north central New Mexico and flows into Texas, emptying into the Rio Grande. Its headwaters are on the eastern slope of the they ended the thingy right there. Anyway, the length of the river is 926 miles.
Huh.
And it starts in New Mexico, and there's some pictures over the river and so forth. It looks like there's some high cliffs in places. So the Pecos River. So from the sound of it, it sounds like he's in New Mexico.
Yes, it does. This looks like a river, but I don't know what that one is. Huh. Anyway, somewhere in there. If anybody knows where it is, let me know. Anyway, somewhere in there. So he's in New Mexico, and you can see it. This is a map from back in the day. This is 1857, and you can see how populated New Mexico was. Not very. It is. You get Santa Fe, you get this area here because this is the route they use to get to California. But everything down below that is just pretty much empty. El Paso there, so Pecos ain't too far from there. Anyway, let's get on with the show. He didn't waste anything. He was careful not. He was starving at this point. He had to eat cactus apples. He ate vegetation of any kind. Food or water was entirely unknown. He says, I drove an antelope, or saw an antelope, but could not kill anything. I went 7 days without food and water. So think of it, people. 3 days without water. This kid did it for 7 days without food or water. He was ready to give up and to lie down and die. A foul skunk. Now listen to this. This amazed me. A foul skunk came up and I killed him, cooked him, and ate him. Boy, I tell you what, to kill and eat a skunk, you must be hungry. I mean, you can't even walk near a skunk without gagging. But
Yeah, really. And I'd be interested in how he cooked him. I mean, one of the simplest ways would have just to put the skunk right straight on the fire.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't really say. I found a skunk, I killed him, cooked him, and ate him. But he was careful not to eat too fast or too much at once. I did not want to waste any part of him, for food was too scarce. Okay. I don't know if I could even do that. I found some muddy water. I put grass over it to keep it from the drinking flies or bugs, and drank the water. I watered and rested my horse and ate more polecat, which is a skunk, drank more muddy water, and felt much refreshed. Okay, talk about being tough. Let's go and try that. Let's go on a trip, go camping. We'll kill a polecat. We'll cut it up, drink some muddy water, and see how we feel afterwards.
Yep.
I don't think we'll be refreshed.
And folks don't know. I mean, we're reading it out there, and this is this man's, personal account. He's not making this stuff up. This is what really happened.
Yep.
And there are folks who have been stuck in the mountains before, and the Marines and service people, when they take on want to be a Green Beret and stuff, they got to go out in the mountains and survive, and they have to learn these things. But back in the day, the women, the children, they were all tough as nails. Because they had to survive. They were true pioneers. So, back in the day, we just give them folks, our ancestors who've come before, because they sure put up with a lot.
They did. I mean, this guy is tough. It gets even worse. He was so hungry, he ate that polecat, and then he traveled on and found some buffalo. Oh boy, I bet you he was so happy. And he selected a small calf and he roped him. I jerked the little fellow down and dragged him for a short distance. Then, thinking I could manage him, buffalo are wild. Even a little calf is remember, he's like 15 years old. And he thought I could manage him. I jumped down to cut his throat, but the little fellow got up and butted me down and ran over me, because that's what buffalo do. They are mean and they're tough even when they're a calf. I got up and he brought me down again. I drew my bow, but I never tried to get up. I had 50 arrows. All these I stuck into that little buffalo. Must have been pretty big and tough. But I wonder what he considered small. 50 arrows. I was so weak I could not kill him, and he kept butting me around, and I finally managed to get my horse and climbed on, and I rode off, the buffalo cap being still attached to the end of the lariat. I dragged him until he was so near dead that I could get down and finish him. Oh boy. Talk about that. I mean,
bet he had a party with that buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been work. I mean, he's so tired. He's so weak. He hasn't eaten in days. And well, anyway, he gets done. The buffalo's dead. And he cut the calf open. And as usual, he ate the warm liver. Yeah. I don't like liver. But it was a specialty in those days. And then from his pouch, I drank the sour milk that I found there. And I took a good long rest. Oh boy, good for you, boy. Later, I skinned and dressed this calf, ate more of the entrails, and prepared for cooking some meat. Now, I'll tell you, you know, just let's eat the entrails first. Don't worry, kids. Oh, yeah.
Well, you know,
Okay.
down here they call that tripe.
Really? There's a thing
Yeah,
for that.
yeah. Oh, and oh, God, does it stink when they cook it? Lord have mercy. Oh, come on over and get some try. No, I ain't. No, no, no. Yeah, here, just try a little bit. Nuh-uh. Nuh-uh. Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
You know how strong
Um,
the smell of cabbage can be when it's
no.
cooking? Cabbage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cabbage. I've cooked a lot of
When
cabbage.
it's cooking, how strong it can be. Well, you know, tripe is about 15 times stronger than that.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it'll gag a maggot.
Wow. Okay. There was no shooting them. I mean, that buffalo he must have did. It must have been pretty big. But anyway, uh, anyway, he cooked and ate the meat. Um, let's see. He got two dry sticks and rubbed them together until he had notches in them. And he rubbed on, and he was so weak he could barely build a fire. He was persistent, and finally there was spark. You rub two sticks together, you'll get fire. Well, he cut the meat up and he was cautious. Now, here's something you might not know. When I cut the meat, I was cautious not to offend the Great Spirit. I'm thinking, what the fudge? If an Indian cuts or punches a hole in a piece of meat before or while he is cooking it, he has offended the Great Spirit and is sure to have some misfortune on the trip. If anybody in the camp with Indians pushes a stick through meat to cook it, he is immediately banished from camp, if not killed. Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, actually, I was just studying something that there's something about poking a stick through meat. That's interesting. But in general, no, I have not heard of it.
Huh. So, if you ever remember that, don't offend the Great Spirit. Don't poke a stick through the meat to cook it. Tie it on the stick instead. Yeah, anyway. Well, then he ate all he could, and then he smoked the rest. And then he traveled on some more. And at night, he would take the meat and he would put it under his head like a pillow, right? So nothing would get it. He didn't tie up his horse so his horse could run around, but his horse was his horse, so it wouldn't even leave him. You know, these Indians, they train their horses to stick with them. Anyway, so at night when he heard stuff, he'd jump up, jump on them, and they'd ride away. Night after night. You know, and but he was almost sure that somebody was following him because his horse would come and warn him. His horse would come running up from out of the dark and warn him. So he's like, oh, yeah, exactly. Well, eventually, I was sure someone was after me, so I dismounted and fell asleep again. But I was aroused this time. I saw the trouble was a big Lobo wolf was smelling under my head for the meat. Now, how close was that wolf? Must have been pretty close. Smelling the meat under his head. Of course, I thought of Indians dressed in skins of wolves to get close to me. I bounded up and drove an arrow, which ended up in that wolf's career. Then I turned around and I shot another and another until I had killed 5, and several ran away. Well, I'll tell you what, you shooting arrows with one of those Indian bows to kill 5 wolves, you're pretty damn brave, and you're a pretty damn good shot. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I would have learned 5 wolves. Holy cow, you got to be winging them off. Holy crap, just I don't even know how you do that.
And the thing is, though, when you're in a situation like that, you ain't got much of a choice, you know.
Yeah.
It's like and it's almost like in one of the Marvel movies or something where the character's got something and he's like he's a ninja,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and some of those old timers and those young kids used to practice with each other. They were good,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They said that the Indian could have 5 arrows in the air before before the one hits you.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow. So anyway, he goes on and he gets to the Buffalo Range. So we got to change our picture here. The Buffalo Range. What do you think they're out there doing? Hunting buffalo. Yeah, there was Buffalo Range. And food was plentiful now. But the saddle that he had on his horse, it was just a forked stick. It was hurting his horse's back. So he thought he'd make a better one. He tanned some hides. And he says, fortunately, I had a file, a piece of steel among my possessions. I cut a pole and fastened the steel on one end and set the other end on a pole in the ground. I'm reading this because I can't describe it any better. I rubbed the fleshy side of the hide over the steel until all the meat was worn away. Then I would put brains of the animal on the hide, and that would make it soft and pliable. This was a slow process of tanning, but I had more time than anything else. I cut down a willow tree, hacked off a fork, and whittled out a saddle tree. Talk about talented. I'm going to just cut that willow down and get my knife out. I feel like Jed Clampett in front of the house, whittling away, saying, yep, Granny's cooking up some victuals and a polecat and a possum stew tonight.
Yep.
He went off saddle tree. Then he covered it with the rawhide, patted it with the buffalo hair, recovered this and put on extras. He even put on some stirrups. I bent a willow stick around and covered it with hide and made good stirrups. Wow. Then he covered the whole hide, the saddle, with buffalo robes, and then extended the fenders and measured my horse's back, made everything fit. Oh, yeah, he was a long, long time working on that saddle. Anyway, on he went. He tanned some buffalo to the back snake. He tanned a black snake and made moccasins. My file was serving the purpose of them all, in which to sew, and the sinew was used as thread. Oh, they took the sinew from the animals.
Yeah, they would cut really thin strips. And certain parts of like the skin around the belly. And because it was pliable and not as thick as like up on the shoulder or the back. So they would take it and just cut really fine strips and then soak them in water.
So I don't know where he is exactly on the plains here, but he is out there. He's wandering around. Now he has a nice saddle. He's got his horse. Now all he needs is a dog to keep him company. But he couldn't find one of those. He wound around, shifting his position. One day he came in sight of a town. And he said, seeing two men riding along, he turned and rode the other way as fast as his horse could carry him. He rode toward the Pecos again. And one day I killed a bear, made a fire, and had a fine roast. And it wasn't just, how hard it is to kill a bear? And all he's got is a bow and arrow. Oh my gosh. He says, I got a good greasy meal that time. Bears must be greasy. I guess they like the grease.
Yes.
Anyway, he's picked places to stay. He stayed in rough places, where he could hide himself up. And he says, I could never be hemmed up. I was then in my 16th year. I would lie down at night and spend hours watching the great celestial paranormal in the skies, thousands of bright orbs and clusters and configurations and beautiful. I would look at the great starry vault, the blue dome, and then at my shield. And I would see that the larger stars occupied the same position on my shield that they did in the heavens. Now, ain't that something? I thought that was really peculiar. Now, did he make this shield? Or did somebody give that shield to him? Obviously, he didn't realize it until then. So somebody must have gave him that shield and put that configuration of the stars on his shield. Now, listen, it gets even better. I would see the larger stars occupied the same position on my shield, and they did as they did in the heavens. And thus, on cloudy days, my shield served as a compass as well as a protector. Now, talk about ingenious. Now, if you ever see one of those shields and you see dots all over it, those are the stars, and that's how they would navigate at night. Go figure.
But I'll say this. Not every shield had dots on it.
No, but I said if you ever see one.
Yeah. But those, were usually held by the chief, one of the top warriors, and or the shaman.
Yep.
They would all have a shield with dots on it,
Maybe maybe that was the shield he took off that shaman. And he was fighting.
Could be. Absolutely. That's what I was thinking as you was reading it.
He took the shield and he took that Winchester, but then when they ran out of bullets, he said, but I'll take the shield. So there you go. So he went back out on the prairies where, he hunted antelope and things. And then his horse was fat on the grass. He could hear animals running and screaming. He was just in heaven out there. It was great. But then there was a lot of rattling, a lot of snakes he says, out there. I don't know why. But anyway, he decided he had to get out of there. He rode on the plains and worked away on some new moccasins. I got out of reach of the water and my food gave out, and I hunted for game and searched for water for several days. Can you imagine not having water for several days again? And when I found water, I let my horse drink first. But I was careful that he did not take too much. Yeah, remember, your horse dies, you are walking, buddy. I stayed at this watering for 3 days and didn't want to leave. He went to the high point and he saw some Indians coming. He mounted his horse and he got away. So wouldn't be discovered. So I went back to the buffalo country, and there I stayed for quite a while, occasionally finding old camps, places to hide, hunters that use these old camps. Anyway, he was becoming tired of this lonely life, and he came up with a great idea. He thought about joining the Comanches. He says, I can't go back to my Apaches, but I know the Comanches. We traded with them, and maybe I'll go there. They can't understand my language, but I can make some signs, he says. And the hand signs, talking in hand sign language, and they could understand that, and then I could tell them that what was going on, and then maybe that I was with the Apaches, and that I was a white man, and maybe they would let me come live with them. And so he decided to take his life in his hands, and he became a Comanche. So he rode around. Imagine riding around. Where's the Comanches? Oh boy, I'm going to find me a Comanche. I'm going to join up with them. They might kill me too. I don't know, but I'm going to take the chance to do it anyway. So one morning he located a party of Indians and soon discerned that they were Comanches. I stayed at a safe distance and he observed them for a while, and he followed these Indians all day. Got to their camp and it was night. Then he selected an hour and he got brave, and it was after dark. And he approached it. He left his horse and he snuck up close. He wanted to play it safe. So he got closer and closer, and finally, While the Indians were seated around the fire, he walked right up into the fire in the camp, right in the middle of all the Indians. And they were so surprised, they all got up and ran off. You know, the only thing he had with him was his bow and arrows. And he, I mean, I don't know what he was thinking. Why would you walk into your camp with your bow and arrows? Wouldn't they think you hostile or something? I'm surprised they didn't kill him. He says they were laughing and singing just before I walked in. He says Comanches do that. They laugh and they're fun-loving people. He says the Apaches, they don't laugh. They don't sing unless somebody gets killed or hurt.
Yeah.
So anyway,
they were a lot more stern, I guess you could say. But see, now here's the thing about the bow and arrow. If he had his arrows in his quiver, and if he had his, bow slung over his shoulder in such a way that it was non-threatening, or if he was carrying it in his hand where he could get an arrow quick, you could walk in and people would know, oh, he's got a bow and arrow. Oh, he must be a hunter, rather than, oh my God, he's going to kill me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, anyway, he gets there. He's scared, but they come back. He walked right in unannounced. My sudden appearance caused, quite the uproar. He's wondered if they'd kill him. He was scared, but he stood right there. And then soon they came back. And one lone Indian, he says, I made signs for peace, whatever that is. And he tried to tell him, I was a poor lone Indian without a friend, and I'm hungry. A few squaws were there and first to approach me. Yeah, just let the women go and see what let the women go. Yeah, if they get hurt or killed, well, then we'll come and attack, One old woman came up and she, with only one eye, came close to me and began to chatter in an excited voice. I could not understand her, he says. I was wild, young, and timid. She looked like an old devil in the eye. And she was almost my undoing because I didn't know what was going on, he says. She's coming up, yelling at me, screaming, and doing all kinds of stuff. And we'll learn later on that she wanted to kill me. That's what she said. She wanted to kill me because I would bring harm to the tribe, and it was big trouble. But
bad juju.
Yeah, bad juju. Well, anyway, believe it or not, one of the tribe came close and began talking to me in the Apache tongue. I told him that I was an Apache from circumstances and driven from the tribe, and I'd killed a medicine man who had murdered my chief and master, and that I was a white boy at birth. Anyway, he told him about all this stuff on his shield and scalps, and I loved the Indian and hated the white man. That was on my shield were the scalps of white men who had killed the Indian and hated the white man, and blah, blah, blah. It goes on. Scalps. And I had killed people in battle, and I was regarded as, by my race as a mortal enemy. Of course, And then all my warriors of my band were dead and killed in a drunken brawl, he says. Well, they must have felt pity for him. And so they decided to hear, they heard his story and believed that he was truthful. And that morning they assured me that the big chief, Kotapa, I guess that's it, could have given me a big welcome. They accompanied me with the young braves, and they brought me my horse. And then the squaws gave me plenty to eat. So anyway, so he got his horse, got food. I lay down to sleep. The feeling of security and contentment, he says. Woohoo! Life is good, he says, Next morning, I went to the center. I was the center of attraction, and some of the braves wanted me to race. Remember, he had that racehorse, and they wanted to trade for my splendid horse. I would not part with him. He'd been my sole companion during all those lonesome months, and I was much attached to him. They offered me horses, guns, blankets, shields, and one old warrior offered me his daughter. But I remained firm in my resolve to keep my faithful horse. Yeah, buddy, you know, you can get plenty of squaws, but it's hard to get a good horse.
Yep.
You knew at a young age, right? Anyway, they went on to the main party of Indians. He says, I ate raw meat and drank the warm blood of a wolf to give me ferocity of the animals. And I told people that I poisoned my arrows with the venom of rattlesnakes so that I could kill my enemy and make them hurt for days, even if they were wounded. He was telling them a big story. Anyway, he was, I could not endure. And then he told them all this stuff. And then he says, I was led before the chief for kind of an obligation, promise thing. He says, I promise to be faithful and to perform. Doesn't this sound like anything? It sounds like you're joining the military or something. I promised faithfully to perform all my duties as a Comanche warrior to help provide for, protect, and defend those with whom I was entrusted and surrounded, and to obey my chief in all things, in peace and in war. Thus I was adopted into the tribe and became a Comanche. I've remained a Comanche ever since, and those same privileges which were bestowed upon me in that solemn hour are mine to this day. Remember, he lived to like 70 or 80. And I am recognized by Comanches as a tribesman whenever I want to claim my tribe relationship. I was given the name, a Comanche name, Montecanina. It doesn't tell us what that name means. But it does say that he was recorded in the tribal records as Montecahina Herman Lehman. So he was totally adopted, even though he wasn't a real Indian. He was totally adopted as a Comanche Indian. So anyway, so he gets in with the Indians, and they accept him in good faith. They decided to go on raiding parties, and he went with them. They captured plenty of horses. They went to the hunting grounds. This was he was just in seven heaven, I tell you. And everything was going really good. And then back on the war party trail, their favorite thing to do, they rode in advance of the squaws and the tribe, and we raided some Mexican wagon trains. Yeah, of course, it gets really bad here, people. Cover your ears. The Mexicans abandoned the train and ran into the dense undergrowth, and we captured two boys and a girl, or two girls and a boy, I should say. And we killed, of course, they unalived several of the Mexicans and took their scalps. And then they found, all kinds of good stuff in the wagons, and they took tobacco and sugar, powder, lead, cartridges, guns, anything we could find, as well as blankets and some clothing. And then we set fire to the wagons. We hurried from there and traveled about 5 days and became a party of movers. And they were pretty strong, so we did not attack them. Now, I don't know what movers are or why they were pretty strong, but we stole all their horses and left them afoot. So maybe they had lots of guns or something. Anyway, I don't understand that. So, anyway.
Well, back in those days, they had wagons that carried goods, like canned goods, to a general store. And so a mover, I think, might have been, a stock wagon kind of thing.
That could be. They journeyed on, and then finally they stopped for a while. And you remember they killed all those Mexicans and stuff. And then the scalps we had taken were placed on poles. We had a big scalp dance. I didn't even know there was such a thing, scalp dance. The squaws going to the left and the warriors to the right, dancing and yelling and shouting, woohoo, continued that day and night and part of the next day. Then the plunder was all divided. And then for a while, we hunted and killed an abundance of game and supplied the camp with meat. Yep, they moved on, and here's where it tells you where they are. A band was placed when came down the Colorado, crossed to the San Saba, and then to the Lunodable, stealing all the way down near Pack Saddle in Llano County. We came up on a party of white men who hid under a bluff and a rock and gave a hard fight. 3 of our men were killed outright, and several were wounded. We must have made it hard for the whites, for they did not try to follow us. We stole all their horses, and then they got together. We made our escape. The night passed a party of Rangers. Ooh, they hate Rangers. And Minutemen. They left out an old Negro to guard their horses, though. This is where the Rangers and guys made a mistake. We sent an arrow through his heart and got away with all the horses and hurried away from there before reinforcements could come. We knew that he knew that the reinforcements would come, but they had a while because somebody had to walk back, and we took all their horses, he says. We rode kind of slow, and they succeeded in rounding up. They got to another camp where they met up some more Comanches, and they killed them. And then it turned out that there was a whole bunch of military guys there, but they stampeded all the horses, and they shot some shots into the camp, and men ran for their lives. And then there must have been several hundred of the men. Maybe he's making that part up a little bit, but who knows? And we fired a few shots, rounded up all the horses, and stampeded them. We succeeded in getting 40 fine ponies, fresh rested, and then we turned our mounts and into the herd and rode new ones. Yeah, there had been so much shooting and yelling that the Indians who guarded our horses, remember they had other horses, thought we had been followed and rode off and left us. We used our new horses and we raced back and met up with them, of course, before the soldiers. And in 3 or 4 days, we overtook the squaws and children in a camp. And few of our warriors had been killed. And now in the Comanche area, apparently, he says, when their warriors were killed, the women would set up wailing, and they began to gash themselves with knives. We lost 3 braves on the trail, or on the raid, and then we got back to the tribe. We had no war dance. So there you go. Now I got one last one. We'll wrap it up. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe we won't. We'll leave that for next week. We're going to leave that for next week because the next one is cannibalism. And I don't know if you ever heard of the Tonkaways, but we're going to talk about the Tonkaways. I think they're an extinct tribe. If they weren't, they are cannibals. Cannibal tribes of the plains. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but there you go. The cannibal tribes of the plains.
Say the name again.
The Tonkaways. Tonkaways.
It sounds familiar. And my brain's going, no. But yeah. Anyway, we'll find out next.
Yeah, they were the enemy of the Comanche, and the Comanche and the Tonkaways hated each other. So there you go. They were not big fans. So,
well, while you were doing, I have done some cards, but I'm going to wait until after the story.
Okay, I got the story right here. I'm just gonna put it up. I hope you're all liking that book, everybody, because
okay,
oops. There we go. Gotta make it bigger. Yes. Sunset Dreamer says they like their meat. They ate buffalo, bear, greasy. Greasy was good. And then you weren't eating the liver, drinking the stomach milk. Something's wrong with you.
The thing about bears, Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're right. Christmas was right. You're right. Movers were wagon trains. I looked it up. Wagon trains, movers. Yes.
Aha.
Okay, there you go. Wagon trains. Good deal. Thank you.
Wagons
Um,
ho. All right,
interesting.
let's
Yes.
see. Let me I'm trying to get this set up here. Okay, I can read that. All right. So our next story in line is the fall of the Spider-Man. Are we ready?
Okay, it's all yours. Yeah, it's all yours. Take it away.
All right. So this is number 4 or number 5 in our series now. And we're reading from the book Glooskap's Country and Other Indian Tales by Cyrus McMillan, 1922. And this particular story is The Fall of the Spider-Man. In olden times, the Spider-Man lived in the sky country. He dwelt in a bright little house all by himself, where he weaved webs and long, flimsy ladders by which people went back and forth from the sky to the earth. The star people often went at night to earth, where they roamed about as fairies of light, doing good deeds for women and little children. And they always went back and forth on the ladder of the Spider-Man. The Spider-Man had to work very hard, weaving his webs and spinning the yarn from which his ladders were made. One day, when he had a short breathing time from his toil, he looked down at the earth country, and there he saw many of the earth people playing at games, or taking sweet sap from the maple trees, or gathering berries on the rolling hills. But most of the men were lazily idling and doing nothing. The women were all working after the fashion of Indians in those days. The men were working but little. And Spider-Man said to himself, I should like to go to the earth country where men idle their time away. I would marry 4 wives who would work for me while I would take life easy, for I need a rest. He was very tired of his work, for he was kept at it day and night, always spinning and weaving his webs. But when he asked for a rest, he was not allowed to stop. He was only kicked for his pains and called Sleepyhead and Lazy Bones and other harsh names and told to work even harder. Then he grew angry and he resolved to punish the star people because they kept him so hard at work. He thought that if he punished them and made himself a nuisance, they would be glad to be rid of him. So he hit upon a crafty plan. Each night, when the star fairy was climbing back to the sky country, just as he came near the top of the ladder, the Spider-Man would cut the strands and the fairy would fall to the earth with a great crash. Night after night he did this, and he chuckled to himself as he saw the sky fairies sprawling through the air and kicking their heels while the earth people looked up wonderingly at them and called them shooting stars. Many star people fell to the earth in this way because of the Spider-Man's tricks, and they could never get back to the sky country because of their broken limbs or their disfigured faces. For in the sky country, the people all must have beautiful faces and forms. But Spider Man's tricks brought him no good. The people would not drive him away because they needed his webs, and he was kept always at his tasks. At last, he decided to run away of his own accord. And one night, when the moon and the stars had gone to work and the sun was asleep, he said farewell to the sky country and let himself down to earth by one of his own strands of yarn, spinning it as he dropped down. In the earth country, he married 4 wives, as he had planned, for he wanted them to work for him a while he took his ease. He thought he had worked long enough. All went well for a time, and the Spider Man was quite happy, living his lazy and contented life. Not a strand did he spin, nor a web did he weave. No men on earth were working, only the women toiled. At last, Glooskap, who ruled upon the earth in that time, became very angry because the men in these parts were so lazy. And he sent famine into their country to punish them for their sins. Famine came very stealthily into the land and gathered up all the corn and carried it off. Then he called to him all the animals and the birds and the fish of the sea and river, and he took them away with him. In all the land there was nothing left to eat. Only water remained. The people were very hungry and they lived on water for many days. Sometimes they drank the water cold, sometimes hot, sometimes lukewarm, but at best it was but poor fare. The Spider Man soon grew tired of this strange diet, for it did not satisfy his hunger to live always on water. It filled his belly and swelled him to a great size, but it brought him little nourishment or strength. So he said, "There must be good food somewhere in the land, in the world. I will go in search of it." That night, when all the world was asleep, he took a large bag and crept softly away from his 4 wives and set out on his quest for food. He did not want anyone to know where he was going. For several days he traveled, living only on water. But he found no food, and the bag was still empty on his back. At last, one day, he saw birds in the trees, and he knew that he was near the border of Hungerland. That night in the forest, when he stopped at a stream to drink, he saw a tiny gleam of light far ahead of him through the trees. He hurried towards the light, and soon he came upon a man with a great hump on his shoulders, and scars on his face, and a light hanging at his back with a shade on it, which he could close and open at his will. The Spider-Man said, "I'm looking for food. Tell me where I can find it." And the hump man with the light said, "Do you want it for your people?" But the Spider-Man said, "No, I want it for myself." Then the hump man laughed and said, "You are near to the border of the land of plenty. Follow me, and I will give you food." Then he flashed a light at his back, opening and closing the shade, so that the light flickered, and he set off quickly through the trees. The Spider-Man followed the light, flashing in the darkness. But he had to go so fast that he was almost out of breath when he reached the house where the humped man lived. But the humped man only laughed when he saw the Spider-Man coming, puffing wearily along with his fat and swollen belly. He gave him a good fat meal, and the Spider-Man soon felt better after his long fast. Then the humped man said, "You are a Spider-Man who once weaved webs in the sky. I, too, once dwelt in the star country, and one night, as I was climbing back from the earth country on your ladder, carrying my lamp on my back to light the way, when I was near the sky, you cut the strands of the web, and I fell to the earth with a great crash. That is why I have a great hump on my back and scars on my face. And because of this, I have never been allowed to go back to the sky country of the stars. I roam the earth at nights as a forest fairy, just as I did in the olden days. For I have my former power still with me, and I still carry my lamp at my back. It is the starlight from the sky country. I shall never get back to the star country while I have life. But someday, when my work on earth is done, I shall go back. But although you were cruel to me, I will give you food." The Spider-Man remembered the nights he had cut the ladder strands, and he laughed to himself at the memory of the star fairies falling to earth with a great crash. But the man with the light knew that now he had his chance to take vengeance on the Spider-Man. The latter did not suspect evil. He was glad to get food at last. Then the humped man said, "I will give you 4 pots. You must not open them until you get home. They will then be filled with food, and thereafter, always when you open them, they will be packed with good food, and the food will never grow less." The Spider-Man put the 4 pots in his bag, and slinging it over his shoulder, he set out for his home. Well pleased with his success, after he had gone away, the hump man used his power to make him hungry. Yet for several days he traveled without opening the pots, for although he was almost starving, he wished to do as the humped man had told him. At last he could wait no longer. He stopped near his home, took the pots out of the bag, and opened them. They were filled with good food as he had been promised. In one was a fine meat stew, and in another were many cooked vegetables. In another was bread made from Indian corn, and in another was luscious ripe fruit. He ate until he was full. He covered the pots, put them back in the bag, and hid the bag among the trees. Then he went home. He had meanwhile taken pity on his people, and he decided to invite the chief and all the tribe to a feast the next evening, for the pots would be full, and the food would never decrease, and there would be enough for all. He thought the people would regard him as a very wonderful man if he could supply them all with good food in their hunger. When he reached his home, his wives were very glad to see him back, and they at once brought him water, the only food that they had had. But he laughed them to scorn and threw the water in their faces and said, "Oh, foolish women, I do not want water. It is not food for a great man like me. I have had a good meal of meat stew and cornbread and cooked vegetables and luscious ripe fruit. I know where much food is to be found, but I alone know. I can find food when all others fail, for I am a great man. Go forth and invite the chief and all the people to a feast which I shall provide for them tomorrow night, a feast for all the land, for my food never grows less." They were all amazed when they heard his story, and the thought of his good meal greatly added to their hunger. But they went out and summoned all the tribe to a feast as he had told them. The next night, all the people gathered for the feast, for the news of it had spread through the land. They had taken no water that day, for they wished to eat well, and they were very hungry. They were as hungry as wild beasts in search of food. The Spider Man was very glad because the people praised him, and he proudly brought in his bag of pots. The people all waited hungrily and eagerly. But when he uncovered the first pot, there was no food there. He uncovered all the pots, but not a bit of food was in any of them. They were all empty, and in the bottom of each was a great gaping hole. Now it had happened in this way. When the humped man, the star fairy, had given the pots to the Spider Man, he knew well that the Spider Man would disobey his orders, and that he would open the pots before he reached his home. He chuckled to himself, for he knew that now he could take vengeance on the web weaver who had injured him. So when the Spider Man had left the pots among the trees, the humped man used his magic power and made holes in the pots, and the charm of the food was broken, and all the food disappeared. When the people saw the empty pots, they thought they had been purposely deceived. The remains of the food and the smell of the stew and the fruit still clung to the pots. They thought the Spider Man had eaten all the food himself, So in their great hunger and their rage and their disappointment, they fell upon him and beat him and bore him to the ground, while the humped man with the lamp at his back, hiding behind the trees, looked on and laughed in glee. Then the people split the Spider Man's arms to the shoulders and his legs to the thighs, so that he had 8 limbs instead of 4. And the humped man, the star fairy named Firefly, came forth from behind the trees, and standing over the fallen Spider Man, he said, "Henceforth, because of your cruelty to the star people, you will always crawl on 8 legs, and you will have a fat, round belly because of the water you have drank. And sometimes you will live on top of the water, but you shall always eat only flies and insects, and you will always spin downwards, but never upwards. And you will often try to get back to the star country, but you shall always slip down again on the strand of yarn you have spun." Then Firefly flashed his light and went quickly away, opening and closing the shade of his lamp as he flitted among the trees. And to this day, the Spider Man lives as the humped man of the lamp had spoken, because of the cruelty he practiced on the star fairies in those olden days. The end. Not a bad story.
No, not a bad story at all. I like that one.
You know,
Very good.
He did get revenge, and you got to ask, well, he was just laughing when he cut those webs, and the star fairies fell to the ground with a crash, and so he met up with one later on in life and revenge. But here's something that a moral of the story. Did the Spider-Man know really what he was doing? I mean, he was just being playful, and it was like, well, he didn't really see anything wrong. I'm just cutting these strands here. Ha 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 ha. Ain't this funny? So he wasn't really conscious of what he was doing by the fact that he was hurting them.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's a good story because, there are times when, and children can be cruel because they don't have enough experience in how much life hurts. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, the kids will be throwing rocks at somebody, and then you go, well, wait a minute, hang on. You over there, hey, Billy, come here, you stand over here. Well, why? Well, because you don't know what it feels like to get hit with rocks. Okay, everybody, throw rocks at Billy now. Next thing you know, Billy's going, ow, ooh, ow, ooh. Well, see, dummy, don't be throwing rocks at other people. It hurts. Oh, I see. So, but in this, it was like, so how do you learn a lesson out of this?
Yep.
But anyway, so I yanked these cards out of the deck. Ooh, I prayed over them, and this is what I got. The first one being swan, right side up. The second one is horse, upside down. The third one, of all things, is spider, right side up.
Oh,
The next one is squirrel, right side up. And the last one of the five is butterfly, upside down. So give me a half second and let me get to my book. Ouch. Wait, come on.
what was that last one? Squirrel and butterfly. Butterfly.
Butterfly, yeah.
Short term
Butterfly.
memory.
What time is it? Oh, not too bad.
No, we're good.
About
We're
time
good.
to
I'm
take
just pulling up.
about time to take my meds. There's my book.
Yeah, spider. That's Lucky's favorite. Lucky, you still got spider pets? Oh, he probably does. That's one pet that I just can't handle. I love
Nope.
pets, just not my cup of tea. Sorry.
Okay, first up is Swan. And we know the swan song.
Yes.
The swan was the ugly duckling. And you know, the swan wanted to go into the dream time and she asked Dragonfly, and Dragonfly says, well, it's a good thing that you asked because that is the doorway to other planes of imagination. I have been the guardian of the illusion for many, many moons. If you want to enter there, said Dragonfly, you would have to ask permission and earn the right to go in. So Swan was not so sure that she wanted to enter that black hole. She asked Dragonfly what was necessary for her to earn entry. Dragonfly replied, you must be willing to accept whatever the future holds as it's presented, without trying to change the Great Spirit's plans. Swan looked at her little ugly duckling body and then said, I will be happy to abide by Great Spirit's plan. I won't fight the currents of the black hole. I will surrender to the flow of the spiral and trust what I am shown. Dragonfly was very happy with Swan's answer. And suddenly Swan was engulfed by the whirlpool. Swan reappeared many days later, but was now graceful and white and long-necked. Dragonfly was stunned. Swan, what happened to you? Swan smiled and said, Dragonfly, I learned to surrender my body to the power of the Great Spirit. And I was taken to where the future lives. I saw many wonders high on Sacred Mountain, and because of my faith and my acceptance, I have been changed. I have learned to accept the state of grace. Dragonfly was very happy for Swan. If you've pulled the Swan, it ushers in a time of altered states of awareness and of development of your intuitive abilities. Swan medicine people have the ability to see the future, to surrender to the power of the Great Spirit, and to accept the healing and transformation of their lives. Now, y'all paying attention to that? To surrender to the power of the Great Spirit. Now, that's a really difficult thing because people always want to change stuff, you know? Well, I don't know if I really like it that way. When the Great Spirit's going, hey, now come on, just stick with this plan here, you know? And y'all know what I'm talking about. So there are folks who will fight it tooth and nail because they think they know better than the Great Spirit. And in order to, when you accept and go with the flow as it's as it is, then you can enter a state of grace, and that's a good thing. You get points for that. You know what I mean? So next in line here, oh, drat. Next in line here is horse upside down. Number 35. Horse is about horsepower, and horse was the one of the first and only animals that were added because in North America there weren't any horses. So horse is power. Mighty horse, power to run across the open plains, or to bring the visions of the shields dancing in purple dream rains. So stealing horses is one of the famous things. Stealing horses is stealing power. And it's a reference to the esteemed role which horse played in those native cultures. Humanity made a great leap forward when horse was domesticated. They could carry burdens for great distances with ease. Dream Walker, a medicine man, was walking across the plains to visit the Arapaho. He carried with him his pipe. The feathers tied in his long hair pointed to the ground, marking him a man of peace. Dreamwalker saw a herd of wild mustangs. Black Stallion approached him and asked if he was looking for an answer on his journey. Black Stallion said, I am from the void. Ride on my back and know the power of entering the darkness and finding the light. So each of the horses brought a light and a message. In the contrary position, if your ego has gotten in the way, you may have failed to notice the lack of respect you have been receiving from others. You may, on the other hand, be struggling with others who are abusing their power. Should I say something? Should I fight it? Or whatever, Remember the times in your own life when you have fallen out of grace with the Great Spirit, and then have compassion for other brothers and sisters who are working now on doing the same thing. And I mentioned last night, I think, about how how it's time for us to, start to talk to some of our friends and neighbors to try to get them out of their hyper state, In allowing all pathways to have equal validity, you will see the power and glory of the unified family of humanity. And boy, howdy, this is a time to work on this family of humanity. You know what I mean? This is the gift of the rainbow warrior. The eye has no place in this whirling rainbow that comes from the great mystery and is replaced by the universal we. All colors of the rainbow and all pathways are honored as one. The horse is power. Remember that. you get the power to make changes. But one of the things too is to kind of go with the flow, you know? Oh, that's one. Trust in the okay, number 43. Spider. It's about weaving me behind. No, anyway. Spider wove the web that brought humans the first picture of the alphabet. Letters were part of the angles of her web. And Deer asked Spider what she was weaving and why all the lines looked like symbols. Spider replied, "Why, dear, it is time for Earth's children to learn to make records of their progress in their Earth walks." Okay? This is really important. Where is it? It is time for Earth's children to learn to make records. This is the important part of their progress in their Earth walk. Why are we here? Why are you and I here? We're on our Earth walk. And so it's like folks are waking up to stuff, ain't they? You know, and so here's um part of our journey, if we really pay attention, is to like keep a diary, you know, and keep a record of how we're doing in this life, in this Earth walk, you know. And at the end of it, it's a celebration of I made it, you know. When you get on the other side from this Earth walk, you're gonna go, "Oh man, I made it. Ooh, that was." So it'll be a proud thing when you make it, you know? It's like running the 400,000-mile dash. So it was Spider that wove the first primordial alphabet as she had woven the dream of the world that had become manifest. So she did the alphabet, but then she also did a primordial physical world. Spider weaves the webs of fate for those who get caught in her web and become her dinner. This is similar to humans who get caught in the web of illusion in life, in the physical world, and never see beyond the horizons into the other dimensions. So don't get stuck in the web that you can only see things from that perspective. You know, if you're stuck in the web, you can't go exploring and yada yada. The web of fate also represents the wheel of life, which does not include any alternatives or solution. It is typically human to get caught in the polarity of good or bad fortune without realizing that we can change it all at any time. Let me read that last part. It is typically human to get caught in the polarity of good and evil without realizing that we can change it at any time. That's important. Where's I lost my place? If we are not decisive enough about changing our lots in life, we may end up being consumed by our fears and limitations. And we don't want that, right? So Spider brings a message of a different kind when she sees you becoming a bit too involved in the weaving of your own life, plans to notice opportunity at the outskirts of your web. If this is the case, Spider gets your attention so that you can notice that something you have woven has borne fruit. Congratulations! Spider caught you just in time before you missed the opportunity on the edge of your own web or reality. So, congratulations. Next one up is squirrel. And squirrel is right side up. And also, squirrel is about saving a bunch of stuff. 31, 26. Squirrel is about gathering. Squirrel teaches you to plan ahead for the winter. Well, we're here in winter. Got caught with my pants down last week when it snowed 6 inches. Squirrel medicine can come in many forms, as this little critter is very diverse in nature. The erratic behavior of the squirrel has bested many a hunter. The gathering power of squirrel medicine is a great gift. It teaches you how to gather and store your energy. It teaches you how to gather and store your energy. So if you're thinking of little nuts and berries and stuff, no. Storing your energy for times when you really need it. It teaches you to reserve something for future use. Whether it be a judgment, an opinion, a savings account, candles, or extra food, whatever you save. To put it in a nutshell, squirrel is the Boy Scout in the animal kingdom. Always be prepared. If squirrel has scurried into your cards today, it may be that you are being told, listen to this, to honor your future. Now, this swan's talking about the future. Spider talking about your future. So squirrel talking about your future. It may be that you are being told to honor your future by readying yourself for change. Now, we are all in the middle of a bunch of change right now. This message could be to lighten your load. Lighten your load, not put a burden on it now. These things can include thoughts or worries or whatever. If you're carrying too many things, get rid of them. Squirrel has another lesson which can aid you if you observe what is obvious. Now, in this changing times, it's always good in any changing times is to pay attention to your surroundings, really, and be observant, be aware, really. So, squirrel has another lesson. If you observe what is obvious and which can prepare you for anything, it has to do with the safe place in which to put your gatherings. So, you're gathering energy, you're gathering good thoughts, you're gathering good energy. So, where do you put them? You know? Um, the safe place is an untroubled heart. Untroubled heart and mind. And that which is gathered to put in this place is wisdom and caring. An untroubled mind and heart. And what you put in there is wisdom and caring. Next up is butterfly. Now, butterfly has to do with the different stages of the butterfly transformation. Now, this bugger's upside down. So there's 4 stages of the transformation. The egg stage is for having a thought. The larvae stage is when you make a decision. The cocoon stage, are you developing something, the idea or whatever you're working on? And the fourth is the birth stage. You're sharing your completed project. Okay. So now that's all really good in transformation. So at those four stages, there are things that you accomplish. And before you move on to the next stage. But now, if this butterfly is upside down, here's what you got. If you have drawn butterfly reversed, your lesson is a simple one. There is a need for change in your life. Now, the other cards that just talked about that, about changes and being careful, and if you follow the Great Spirit, you end up with the grace, you know. So this could be a possible need for freedom, for a vacation, or for a new job. You may believe that change is too difficult, and you may rule it out to preserve the comfort of old habits. But in ruling out any possibility of change, see, if you say, nope, I ain't changing, you are saying that the courage of butterfly has been lost. Why does butterfly represent courage? Because there is a totally different world outside the cocoon. Think about it. If you're stuck in the house, that's like a cocoon. When the known realities of the chrysalis are no longer applicable, this new world demands that you use your newfound wings and fly. So there you go, my friends. Those are 5 cards for tonight. I'm pretty good, you know. Listen to the Great Spirit's plan. You know, the horse is all about power, but and Spider is weaving the letters and don't get stuck in transition. And Squirrel is, gather things, but make sure you leave some room for the good stuff, like wisdom. And Butterfly, that's a pretty decent spread right there, my friends. Without scaring you to death, it's just, it's all positive. I think that's good. Even the upside down cards were in a positive mode. So 1203, not bad. Is that a 3? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did pretty
Oh,
good.
yeah. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, you did good. Did good. We're at the 1 hour and 57-minute mark, right on our 2-hour time slot. There you go.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Everybody's on good time, except Scotty Boy. He's 3 minutes ahead. Yeah, 1 minute behind, one or the other. So anyhow, you got a show coming up tonight?
Yeah, okay, a short one. I was
Short
up
one.
all night
All
last
right.
night with one. I did another
Yeah, I seen
4-hour one last night.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Anyway, wow.
About hour
There you
3,
go.
I was pretty much asleep that last that last hour.
Yeah, I know. It gets to be 11. I start getting tired.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Your
Yes,
medicine.
Chloe, I'm fixing to do it right now to take my meds. Absolutely. I got to go get coffee. The coffee pot's still on, and I'll take my meds, and then I'll log on. So, I want to thank you, Robert, as always. I look forward to Tuesdays to come and reading stories, to come and discussing things that you found and read, and we bring the old history up, and we
Right.
don't have a bunch of special effects. You pull pictures up. We don't have any real special music in the background. We just chunk it out there.
That's right. I think people like
We
it
do.
because
We just
you know,
kind of chunk it out there.
we
But I
do that
thank
best
you
our
all
best.
for being here and being a part of and letting us chunk it out there to you.
This is true. Yeah, we just wing it and go. But hey, we get
Yeah.
better every time. Every time. So
Thank you for your participation. Really. Thank you.
yes. Everybody shows up every week. Couldn't do this without y'all.
Nope.
I remember when we first started, man, is anybody coming? Man, there's nobody in the chat. Now it's a great time. So good deal. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I will be back on Saturday. Saturday night with a great show for you. Don't even know what it's about yet, but it's going to be good. Who knows? Maybe I'll have some special guests. You never know. If I'm lucky. Anyway, if you want to join me, give me a holler. Send me an email. Link is in the description below. Thank you all so very much. Remember, it's that time of year. It's cold outside. Think of somebody who's cold. Not warm their hearts by waving at them and smiling. Maybe give them a call on the phone. Say, hey, how you doing? Like Mary Wynn says, love wins, and so does Robert Scott. Thank you. Just go out there, and do something nice for somebody else. Remember to be that frequency you want to receive, everybody. Love you all. Peace.
Cheers.